You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
Right now, there's a four-person startup racking up $113,000 monthly server bill. And they are absolutely thrilled about it.
Which is just wild to think about.
Right. I mean, think about that for a second. Traditionally, if you see a $100,000 tech bill for a tiny team, that's a death sentence. It's a sign of terrible engineering.
Oh, yeah. Usually you'd be firing the CTO for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But today, we're looking at a business landscape where the rules of physics have just completely inverted. We're living in a world where the concrete pours itself, the walls assemble in a weekend, and yet somehow the water bill for mixing that concrete is bankrupting people.
That's a great way to put it.
And the inspector who signs off on the final house, not even human.
Right, because it is a profound structural inversion. We are fully in what we're calling the agent era now. And the actual mechanics of what that means for companies, well, it's turning traditional business models completely inside out.
The metrics are just breaking.
Completely breaking.
And that is our mission for you today. Welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive. We are taking a massive stack of intel, specifically the TLDR Founders newsletters from late June and early July of 2026, and we are decoding these hidden shifts in the software and AI landscape.
There is a lot to unpack.
There really is. We're unpacking exploding AI costs, the total death of traditional software moats, and, this wild new reality where your next customer or even your next employee might just be screen code.
The sheer velocity of this shift is what really stands out to me. We aren't talking about abstract theories of what AI, might do in 5 years.
Right, this is happening right now.
Exactly. The data from these late June and early July dispatches shows real companies hitting massive financial walls today, while others are finding entirely new, incredibly strange ways to break through them.
Okay, so let's unpack this. I want to start with the bottom line costs, because the mainstream narrative out there is that AI is getting relentlessly cheaper.
Which, on paper, is true.
Right, the raw materials have plummeted. The data shows token prices went from $60 per million down to just 60 cents in just 3 years.
A 100-fold drop.
Yeah, a 100-fold price drop. Like, if gasoline dropped by a factor of 100, driving would be basically free. But instead, the reality for businesses is turning into a financial nightmare.
It's the token trap.
Yeah, you have that four-person startup earning $113,000 a month, and then there's Uber. Uber reportedly blew through their entire 2026 AI budget in just 4 months. How does that even happen?
Well, the Uber example is the perfect illustration of this paradox. The unit cost of a token has collapsed, sure, but the total consumption has gone exponential.
Because they're just using way more of it.
Basically, yeah. To understand why, we have to look at the mechanism of how modern AI actually operates now. We've moved away from simple chat interfaces.
Like where you ask a question and get a single reply.
Precisely. Now, we are dealing with autonomous agents. When an AI agent performs a task today, it doesn't just spit out one output. It has to draft a plan, execute a step, and then evaluate its own work.
Meaning it's constantly double-checking itself.
Exactly. And to do that evaluation, it has to reread its entire context window. Every single time it takes a step, it reads the whole history of the task again to ensure it hasn't drifted off course. It self-corrects, it iterates.
Wow. Yeah.
And that constant looping reevaluation burns tokens at an incredible rate. You're looking at 60 to 140 times the token usage of a standard single reply.
Oh, I see. Okay, let's unpack this. It's like having an old cell phone plan with data roaming, but your phone is downloading the entire internet in the background while you sleep.
That is an incredibly accurate way to visualize it.
You think you're paying for a few simple text messages, but the phone is silently streaming 4K movies to itself just to figure out the contextual nuance of replying with a thumbs up emoji.
That background processing is exactly what's happening. And this fundamentally breaks the old SaaS business model, software as a service. You just can no longer measure economics by cost per seat or cost per user.
Because one user could trigger a massive cascade of background tasks.
Right. Having a highly active user might actually bankrupt you if they trigger too many of those agentic loops. So the new metric that businesses absolutely have to track is cost per completed task.
Cost per completed task.
Yeah. Cheaper tokens do not automatically mean a cheaper bill when the machine is checking its own math 100 times a second.
But wait, if the raw material is 100 times cheaper and yet the consumption is 140 times higher, How do startups even budget for this without going bankrupt? I mean, how do you build a sustainable business when your foundational cost structure can just spiral out of control overnight?
You have to completely rethink where your value actually lies. If the execution of the software is this expensive, you have to ensure the final outcome you're delivering justifies that compute cost.
Which is really tough to do.
It is. And this leads directly into the next major crisis we're seeing in the market, the death of the software mode.
I really want to dig into this because logically, if running the AI is so incredibly expensive, you'd think that simply building the software container that houses it would be highly valuable. Like if you build a great tool, that's your fortress.
You'd think so, yes.
But the dynamic is completely flipped. There is this mind-bending paradox in the data regarding Salesforce.
Ah, yes. The Agentforce situation. It is really the defining case study of this era.
Let's lay out the facts for the listener here.
Oh.
So Salesforce ships a product called Agentforce. It is a massive hit. It becomes the fastest growing product in the history of the company, scaling to $1.2 billion in annual recurring revenue.
A phenomenal success by traditional metric.
Right. Unbelievable win. Yet what happens? Their stock hits a 52-week low. Wall Street looks at a billion-dollar revenue stream and essentially yawns. Why?
Because Wall Street is waking up to a brutal new structural truth. For the last 20 years, the question investors asked was, can they build it? Like, is it technically possible?
Right. Feasibility was a moat. Building a slick, highly functional software interface took millions of dollars and huge teams of specialized engineers. But today, feasibility is no longer a constraint.
Because of AI coding tools.
Exactly. A kid in a dorm room can clone a headline enterprise feature in a weekend now. The software surface, meaning the actual code, and the user interface, has essentially become free to replicate.
Wow.
So a $1.2 billion run rate isn't a moat if a nimble competitor can build the exact same functionality by Monday morning.
So what does this all mean? If the code itself is worthless, then the entire user interface we spent millions designing is worthless too. If the software itself isn't the moat anymore, what on earth is?
Well, value has rigidly rotated to what cannot be cloned. If the software surface is free, you have to own the things that are hard to get.
Like what?
The data identifies 3 unclonable assets right now. First, proprietary data loops. Second, the regulatory right to move money or push code in highly compliant industries. And third, something completely radical called outcome pricing. Okay, outcome pricing. This was wild to read about. This is the concept of software vendors essentially acting like insurers.
Right, that's the best way to think about it, yes.
I was genuinely confused by how this works in practice. Like, how is a SaaS founder supposed to adapt to taking on the actual liability of their client's business?
It requires a total paradigm shift in how you view your product. Let's say you build customer support software. Under the old model, you bill a client $50 a user per month for access to your dashboard.
Right, a standard SaaS subscription.
Exactly. But under outcome pricing, you give them the dashboard for free. You don't charge for the software at all. Instead, you underwrite a result.
Wait, really? Free software?
Yeah, completely free. You charge, say, $4 for every single customer support ticket your AI successfully resolves without human intervention.
Oh, wow.
So you become an insurer of outcomes. You take on the risk of those compute costs we just talked about, but you capture far more of the upside if your AI is actually efficient.
Because the process of getting there, like the interface, the buttons, is invisible and commoditized. The client doesn't care what the dashboard looks like. They just want the resolved ticket.
Exactly. And to pull this off without going bankrupt from those looping token costs, we are seeing founders move away from the big general-purpose model labs altogether.
Right. There was that whole piece on the move to vertical AI. Zane Jaffer and his company Blazil were highlighted as a prime example of this.
Yes. Vertical AI founders are realizing that relying on a massive general-purpose model like a GPT or a Claude leaves them vulnerable.
Too expensive.
Too heavy, too expensive, and honestly too slow for high-volume, highly specific tasks. So founders like Jaffer are ditching the major labs to build their own domain-specific capabilities from the ground up.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, by owning the model itself, they reduce latency, they control those spiraling compute costs, and it builds incredible defensibility because they own the specialized training data that literally no one else has.
And speaking of defensibility, we have to talk about that terrifying statistic regarding churn.
Oh, the churn stat is brutal.
It really is. The newsletters noted that a 10% monthly churn rate means you have to rebuild 70% of your user base every single year.
It's a treadmill you can never step off. If you are solving a one-time problem for a user, they will churn the moment the task is done, no matter how beautiful or perfect your software is.
Right. You cannot out-onboard a customer who doesn't need you anymore.
Exactly. Defensibility today requires picking categories anchored in daily, inescapable workflows.
Which brings up an incredible realization. We've established that the software surface is free to clone, the real moats are proprietary data and underwriting outcomes, and your background compute costs are spiraling.
Yep.
So if human users are churning because the interface doesn't matter, who are we actually building this software for?
This is perhaps the most fundamental shift in the entire tech stack right now. We are moving away from product-led growth, where human users discover, test, and champion software, to agent-led growth.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the phrase used in the readings is, the primitive is the product.
Yes.
We are literally transitioning to a reality where the primary consumers of software are AI agents themselves. They don't care about a beautiful user interface.
Yeah, not at all.
They don't navigate software by clicking buttons or admiring drop-down menus. They intuit it, they compose it, and they interact purely based on raw capabilities. So the best UI right now is actually no UI at all.
That is the reality.
We're optimizing our products to be readable by Claude and Gemini, not humans.
That is the core of agent-led growth. If you're a software company today, you have to start thinking like a developer tools company.
Wow.
Agents need software they can instantly understand and test through code. The whole architecture of the internet is reorganizing itself. Open source software provides the context for agents to learn how things work, and APIs, application programming interfaces, provide the action layer for them to actually do things.
Basically the hands and feet.
Right. If you don't have a robust machine-readable API, your product effectively does not exist to an AI agent.
Okay, I need an analogy here because marketing to a machine is such a bizarre concept.
It's definitely weird.
It's like going to a restaurant. A human looks at the menu, sees a beautiful picture of a burger, reads a mouth-watering description, and orders based on emotion and aesthetics.
Right. Standard human behavior.
But an AI agent walking into that same restaurant doesn't want the menu. It wants a raw, machine-readable spreadsheet detailing the exact supply chain of the beef, the chemical composition of the bun, and the exact caloric output, formatted perfectly so it can instantly compare it to 1,000 other restaurants in a millisecond.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. The human wants the aesthetic presentation. The machine requires explicit, structured data. And we are seeing major companies adapt to this in real time.
Like Notion, right.
Exactly. Look at Notion. They just rolled out new HTML blocks and developer tools natively in their app. The goal isn't for a human to drag and drop text anymore.
Just the AI.
Yeah, the goal is for an AI agent to read a document, sketch out a user flow, and autonomously build a lightweight, interactive prototype right there on the Notion page.
And look at X, formerly Twitter. They just released something called an MCP server, a model context protocol. I actually had to dig into how this works.
Really free technical.
It is. This doesn't add any new features for human users scrolling their feeds. It is essentially a standardized bridge that allows AI tools to natively communicate with X's data network without having to scrape the website like a human would.
Yes, the model context protocol is crucial. It turns the platform into a real-time, highly structured data network for AI to retrieve and analyze information instantly.
Though it is worth noting they restricted the right API endpoints.
Right, meaning the AI can't post autonomously. They obviously want to avoid a massive flood of bot spam. But it perfectly illustrates the broader trend. Platforms are actively reorganizing their architecture to be digestible for machines.
Which introduces a phrase that sounds like a college philosophy course, but is apparently the new holy grail for tech companies. Ontology everywhere.
I love this concept.
I know you do. Let's break it down for the listener. What is an ontology, practically speaking, and why do agents need it?
Well, as agents become the primary consumers of data, they need a formal, explicit layer that describes what things mean and how they relate to each other. That is an ontology.
So it's like a dictionary.
It's more than that. It's not just a glossary. It is a machine-readable map of relationships. If a human looks at a messy financial spreadsheet, they can use common sense to infer that a column labeled rev probably means revenue.
Sure.
And if revenue goes up, it probably impacts the tax column. But an AI agent doesn't have human common sense. It needs an explicit coded specification that says rev equals revenue, and revenue has a direct mathematical relationship to tax.
So the strategy for a business now is, don't build a flashy marketing website. Structure your knowledge perfectly into an ontology. Make it accessible via an API, and the market, meaning millions of autonomous agents searching for solutions at light speed, will find you and buy your service automatically.
Precisely. Structure the data, and the agents will sort out the rest.
Okay, so we've got these agents chewing through tokens in the background, making autonomous purchasing decisions via APIs, and reading complex ontologies instead of menus.
Lots going on.
Yeah. Let's look at what happens when they actually enter the workforce, because they are taking real jobs right now.
Measurably so. And in highly complex roles, too. One case study detailed a company replacing their traditional human-monitored contact us form with an AI inbound sales agent.
And we need to be clear here, this wasn't a dumb chatbot answering FAQs.
No, not at all. Over the course of millions of sessions, this agent autonomously booked 614 highly qualified sales meetings.
That's insane.
It gets crazier. It analyzed historical close rate data to route leads to the right human closers. It ran its own automated re-engagement email campaigns. And it even actively negotiated pricing and managed discounting within preset guardrails.
It negotiated discounts. That is wild. It captured revenue that would have just bounced off the website, and it did it all without adding a single human to the sales headcount. And it isn't just sales. There's a new GitHub gist making the rounds that turns AI into a literal middle manager. And the fascinating part is this middle manager doesn't even write code.
Right. It manages the cognitive labor.
Exactly. It reads the issue trackers on Jira, breaks down the massive software bugs into smaller subtasks, and then it assigns those tasks to other specialized coding agents, like Devin.
It's delegating.
It oversees their coding sessions, reviews their output, and only taps a human operator on the shoulder when it gets fundamentally stuck. The AI is literally managing the AI.
And the underlying models powering these specific agents are rapidly diverging in their architecture to support this.
How so?
For instance, Anthropic just released Claude Sonnet 5. It is capable of running autonomously for long periods, rivaling the performance of much heavier models like Opus 4.8. But what's critical is how it was tuned. Anthropic deliberately lowered its cybersecurity capabilities.
Really, they made it dumber at hacking.
Exactly. They made it intentionally less capable at hacking so that it would be safer to deploy in these highly autonomous agentic contexts where it's running without human supervision.
Meanwhile, on the completely opposite end of the spectrum, you have Nano Banana 2 Lite,
A truly incredible name.
which is genuinely a hilarious naming convention for serious enterprise tech, but it's actually Google's Gemini 3.1 flashlight image model.
Right.
It is incredibly fast and astonishingly cheap for rapid image generation, even if it still occasionally struggles with some basic spelling errors in the images it generates.
You really have this explosion of hyper-specialized autonomous capability right now. But this introduces a massive geopolitical bottleneck, which is the final major structural shift we need to cover.
The scarcity issue.
Yes. The autonomous workforce is ready to be deployed, but access to the best models is suddenly being severely constrained.
Right. And I want to be very clear for the listener here.
Yeah.
We're looking at this purely as a factual market constraint, regardless of where anyone sits on the political spectrum.
Exactly. Just the market realities.
It's not about which approach is philosophically right or wrong. It's about the raw structural reality founders have to navigate right now. The U.S. government is effectively stepping in to decide who gets access to the most powerful frontier models.
And it completely flips the narrative of software abundance into a narrative of artificial scarcity.
Because the models are locked down.
Right. Just as the industry figures out how to effectively integrate these agents into the workforce, the frontier models themselves are being regulated almost like weapons-grade uranium or critical national infrastructure.
Wow.
OpenAI's GPT 5.6 is rolling out consumer by consumer entirely under strict government approval and oversight. And Anthropic actually had to pull a model entirely due to these regulatory pressures.
While at the exact same time, the sources point out that Chinese AI labs are shipping their absolute best, most capable models entirely openly for anyone to download and use.
Which creates a fascinating and highly disruptive bifurcation in the global market.
It really does.
In the West, access and governance have suddenly become the scarce resources. It's no longer just about how good a model is, it's about whether you are legally permitted to access that capability.
The global market is fracturing.
Yes, fracturing between tightly controlled, heavily governed frontier models in the U.S. and aggressively open, widely distributed models emerging from the East.
Which forces a really grounded question. If access is being throttled from the top down like that, how does a startup founder or let's use the term from the newsletters, a talent engineer, actually plan a product roadmap?
It's incredibly difficult.
And by the way, the fact that talent engineering is this hot new hybrid role combining HR recruiting with hardcore software development is just another sign of how weird things are getting.
For sure.
But really, how do you plan your company's future when the government might just tap you on the shoulder and say, nope, you can't use that model anymore?
You have to build for absolute flexibility. A talent engineer's job right now is to build internal tools that attract the smartest human capital, because human ingenuity in navigating these massive constraints is more valuable than ever.
So relying on people to figure out the roadblocks.
Exactly. Technologically, you have to build on swappable model architectures. You cannot hard code your entire business to rely on GPT 5.6.
Because it might vanish.
Right. And bringing it all the way back to our earlier point about moats, you survive by building proprietary data loops. If you own the specialized data and the core workflow, you can swap out the underlying AI engine based on whatever model happens to be legally, financially, or geographically accessible to you at that moment.
Okay, we've covered some serious ground today.
We really have.
We've gone from the hidden, exploding costs of hyperactive AI agents silently burning tokens in the background to the death of traditional software moats where a $1.2 billion feature gets cloned over a weekend.
The Salesforce paradox.
Yeah. We've explored the wild reality of agent-led growth, where businesses literally have to structure their ontologies to market APIs directly to machines, all while navigating a newly locked down, heavily regulated global environment for frontier models.
It is a fundamentally new operating system for the entire tech industry. The rules of physics haven't just bent, they have completely rewritten themselves in the span of about 36 months.
Which brings it all back to you, listening right now. Whether you're prepping for a board meeting, trying to build a startup, or just trying to stay a step ahead of where the tech world is heading, the ground beneath you has shifted.
It absolutely has.
As Reid Hoffman put it in one of the dispatches we reviewed,
Yeah.
you have to stop and ask yourself, what game are you actually playing? Because if you are playing by the 2023 rules of SaaS in the summer of 2026, you are already losing.
And to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over as you navigate this new landscape, we talked about agent-led growth. But if AI agents do become the primary buyers, the primary navigators, and the absolute primary consumers of software, what happens to the entire industry of traditional B2B marketing?
Oh, wow.
Right. How do you pitch a product or how do you build brand loyalty for a buyer that doesn't have emotions, doesn't care about your slick website design, never attends a networking dinner, and only evaluates the formal mathematical ontology of your API?
Pitching to a machine that literally cannot feel excitement about your product. It just goes to show. The foundation we thought we're building on might just be pouring itself, but the inspector checking the blueprints definitely doesn't speak our language anymore. Keep questioning those surface-level narratives, keep digging into the foundations of how things actually work, and we will see you on the next deep dive.
Spoken Tech, for your ears.